States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the meeting to order. We are there. So thank you for everyone in attendance in the council chambers, as well as online right now, and with Crossroads TV. So as is my regular habit, I like to introduce everyone around the table for those of you in the audience. So we have John Paciotti, Chair, so our council member, Stephanie Thibodeau, our Vice Chair. We have Michelle Llewellyn, Town Manager, Adam Lorette, Council Member, Peter Lawrence, Council Member and Secretary, and myself, Matt Townsend, Council Chair. So our first order of business are the public announcements. Details may be found at www.fairfieldme.com. Number one, nomination papers for the November 5th municipal election are available and due September 6th. Town Council, 2 seats for a 3-year term and 1 seat for a 2-year term. Number two, summer concerts in Memorial Park are held Fridays, 6 to 7:30 p.m. through August 30th. Number three, Lawrence Public Library. Comprehensive program details online and via the LPL social media. On August 20th at 10:30 a.m., the Medicare workshop, education on enrollment process and available options. New this summer, patron pass to the Coastal Maine Botanical Gardens. Call LPL for details. And children 18 and under, meal collaboration with MSAD 49, lunch 11:30 to 12, Monday through Friday, June 17th to August 16th. The second order of business, public hearings. There are none. The third order of business, public comments. I'll turn it over to Stephanie to talk about that.
Right, so if anybody would like to speak during the meeting for any item, especially we have a pretty full workshop, so if anybody wants to speak during the workshop especially, please raise your hand so you can be recognized so we can call on you. Did anybody want to speak during the workshop? Yeah, we'll get to that. Okay, no one does. Does anybody want to speak now about anything on the agenda? Please come up, state your name.
It's not on the agenda, no.
Okay, that's okay.
That's all right.
It's all right, it's public comments.
Yep, so the public comments. So the members of the public may speak to the council or request the opportunity to speak on a specific item that is on the agenda, or may email comments for the council to info@fairfield-me.gov by 4 p.m. day of meeting. Submitted content may be read aloud at this time. Do we have anything submitted?
You do, actually. You received an email at 4 o'clock from Dwayne Bickford regarding 31 Lawrence Ave.
Do you mind reading that, Michelle?
I certainly will. So
Thank
it
you.
says, "Dear council members, I hope during your deliberations on the outcome of the property at 31 Lawrence Ave, you keep in mind the long-term future of public use of the property and the Lawrence Library itself. By investing in the removal of the building and turning the property into some parking and outdoor use for not only the library, but also added space for public events in Memorial Park across the street. Keep in mind the plans for the future expansion of the library and take full advantage of this expansion. 1, single-space parking along the front of the property. There is no curb here. 2, outdoor use of the library, benches, tables, kids garden, almost endless ideas. 3, expanded use for events held at the library and the park. Please do not landlock what could be a great showcase for the town of Fairfield." Dwayne Bickford.
Thank you.
And that's it. That's all you have.
I think it's all, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, my name is Matt Tully. A couple of things. The park concerts have been unbelievable. The last 2 or 3 have been unreal. Great crowds. It was a great turnout. Got a couple of questions from my dad. In the spring, which he calls the spring, and I think he couldn't remember the exact date, but he lost a bunch of shingles on the roof, and he called somebody at the town office, again, couldn't give me the name, and asked them about what processes he had to do to get some of that money for repairs on his roof. The person told him that she wasn't the right person to talk to, that she would pass on the information to whomever it was. He never received a call back. I don't know if he just was sleeping and didn't hear the call, I don't know. So that's why I'm here. Also, there's the FEMA information. I do have a name. He spoke to a gentleman named Mike in Skowhegan at the FEMA place. He said that he was going to get information, a packet to him. That never arrived, and that was also during the same time. So, and his still, and I offered to pay for the roof, and that is an adamant no, he won't do that. So, I don't know if you guys have any information I can pass back to him. And another question is when is the concerts at the park stopping?
See, August 30th. Yeah, August 30th.
So it's coming right up. So yeah, I mean, if there's anything that you guys can let me know, if I've heard things that the money's no longer here in town, the $20,000 or $30,000 or whatever it was, I don't know, but, and the FEMA money, is there anybody we can call to find out where that application packet went, or what he needs to do to chase that down or something? I don't know.
So what I'm hearing are concerns about FEMA.
Yeah.
So that one would be, I can let Michelle answer, but for us, FEMA is obviously out of our hands. So we can give you contact sources for FEMA and try to do your best on that end. Obviously, that's not much of a help.
Well, no, I mean, we don't even know where to
Right.
go anymore.
But we have
so.
those contact information, and so we can get that to you, at least to help the process.
So I know the application period for the December storm is closed, and I'm not sure if that information is still up on our website or not, but if you check back tomorrow, we can see if we can wrangle that up as to who that was to contact.
Which part's closed? The FEMA side of it, or the
So
town?
there was, during the time of that application period, FEMA had opened an office up in Skowhegan, which is
Yeah.
probably where this Mike is, unless it was Mike Smith through through Somerset County Emergency
I have no
Management.
idea.
But you could also certainly reach out to Somerset County EMA office, because that's who facilitated all of that.
Okay. And the other Fairfield funds from some Somerset County fund or something?
There were no funds that were used for personal use.
So I just want to, for those listening in the audience or at home, and for those of us around the table, just to make sure that we're speaking about the same thing. So just, so if you could ask, or are you talking about money that came from the Somerset County, basically being passed out through the emergency management?
I assume to help repairs or something like that,
So-
I don't know.
So if we're talking about the
Because I
same...
talked to them up there and they said it was in fact money.
So if we're talking about the
personal
same
use, so.
thing, and Michelle can help answer that question because she
That's all I
has
know.
helped with that, the $20,000 that we were given that was meant for emergency management response and mainly meant for setting up a program in the future. It wasn't allowed to be for personal gain at this point, so individual use. But again, Michelle can correct me. So that is still in our, sitting there in our account. So that is there.
I'm gonna need a letter that states that, because they just totally said the opposite of what you just said.
So there was a designated account set up for emergency management. Those funds went into, so that the departments could use it to purchase emergency management type pieces of equipment and that kind of stuff. That's what the council chose to do with those funds for the future. They should be in the council minutes. We can
So did the
find out in a
council
minute.
choose not to be personal, or was it?
Yes.
Okay.
They actually voted what to do with it.
Okay, that's probably where the miscommunication was
Probably
then,
is.
because
But
they
I'm
said
not
it
sure who
was.
you talked to or what you actually got for
I don't know who
information.
we talked to, I have no idea. They just said it was totally different from
But
what.
the town does not have any funds for emergency management purposes for personal
Okay, that's,
residential
yeah,
use.
that's easy enough for me to tell them, so that's good.
Yep, so now we have, so that's good to ask questions and
Yeah,
good
I
to
mean-
understand. So now we have,
I have no idea who we talked to down
Right,
here, so I
yeah,
can't.
so that's good to ask questions. It's good to advocate for your dad. And now you have at least some answers that can then help. So, appreciate that. Any other, actually, yes, thank you, Robert.
Good evening. I'm Robert Cezak. I live at 18 Bunker Avenue. If I may first reply to Mr. Tully.
By all means.
You'd want to speak with Mike Smith, Emergency Management, in Skowhegan.
I never get his last name.
Yeah, it's Smith, Mike Smith. And he should be able to track down the packet if he ever received it. So there's that as well. I don't know. And then just to touch upon the $20,000 the town received from the county, I'm county commissioner. And so I know we passed that money to be used for the towns, because it can't be used personally. So it was for the towns to use as they deemed fit, for the towns who received those funds. And Fairfield decided, used it for emergency management, which is,
So you're telling me that you guys sent it down for the town to use, but not to help residents, right?
we can't
can't
legally.
have
That's why.
side
It's got to,
conversations.
bound our hands on that. We would have liked to, I'm just
So if we just...
individuals in stress, but we
Just for a
couldn't do
second,
that.
if we let Mr. Sazak speak and kind of let him give the details, so probably not to have a bunch of sidebar conversation.
Because it can't be picked up for the recording.
yeah.
People don't understand what your conversation is, so I'm certain the two of you can talk when this is over.
Okay, so basically, the county commissioners expended the money to be used to those areas that needed the help, but only in an emergency management situation. Even though we would have liked to have been able to help people individually, and we saw that need, we are not able to do that. We're constrained by law and cannot use public monies for private gain. So this town received the $20,000, which is being used for emergency management, and which is used for everybody. So it's all people get use of the money. No particular individual is targeted. And then, if I may, segue back to the reason I'm actually up standing here before you, is to talk about 31 Lawrence Avenue and suggest strongly that you do raise the building and use that for that area for parking, for other extended activities for the library and for the park. I was in the library this morning and I looked out and realized how close that building is to the library. It's almost like an encroachment. And so I hope that the council would consider the future of the town to remove that building and to make it into a parking lot. Funny thing about land, they don't make it anymore. So if we have it, it's good to keep it. To further that, I made some, I asked people who I bump into who would like to do with it, and where more people would like to see the building torn down. I did get one person who wanted to see it sold and put on the tax rolls, and another person who didn't care. So in my unofficial survey, most people would like to see the as a parking lot. So, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else that wishes to speak in public comments? Thank you very much. The fourth order of business, reports from staff and committees. Should be the number one, town manager report.
All right, so on July 26th, I was able to attend the ribbon cutting for Dirigo Veterinary Care, so congratulations to Councillor Townsend on the opening of his new facility over there in Waterville. It was a great event, very well attended.
I wish it was in
Wonderful
Fairfield.
tour.
I wish it was in Fairfield, I have to say.
It was good.
But
It was
I
good.
appreciate you being there.
So, and August 6th, I did attend the Economic Community Development meeting, as well as the PFAS committee meeting with the CDC. It was a great meeting, but I'll let Councillor Townsend tell you about that. Just some general project updates. So administration work has started with the ATV Club Trails Grant. So they are doing some really great things and some improvements in and around Bear Mountain and the rail trails. So they're doing great things. So that's going well. And then also I am happy to report that we have filled the administrative assistant position at the town office. So we are currently at the town office not hiring, which is the first time we've been able to say that in a very long time. So that is a great thing, and good things are going on, and everything else for the last couple of weeks we'll discuss as we go through. So
Nice. Thank you, Michelle.
thank you.
Any questions for Michelle?
What's the name of our new associate?
So her name is Brittany Garrett. She actually lives right here in town, so it's
Excellent.
good.
Excellent.
Committee reports.
Well, the Economic and Community Development Committee met yesterday. It was a very productive meeting. We have made plans for some signage that will be going before the council. Basically, we're looking at municipal signage as well as recreational signage. So next month, hopefully, we'll be able to review our recommendations. We have also been talking about looking at a new downtown plan, and we talked at length yesterday concerning what really makes up the downtown district. And we discussed different possibilities, but overall, it's going to be the same. We're recommending that it stay the same as it is now. And this will encourage more economic development as time goes on. And the Central Maine Growth Council is going to be working on this 2-year project with us. And this is just laying the foundation so that we have the parameters for which to work in. So overall, it was a very productive meeting and was and well attended.
So if I may ask one question, were you thinking about zoning changes or just talking about the district in general for more of a, for marketing purposes?
More the latter.
Okay. Nice. Thank you.
Well,
Can I add just one little
Yeah.
thing to that? Just to augment what Councilor Thibodeau had said. This process that we're going through is being conducted so that should we need to re-adopt the downtown TIF, that this would be in compliant with state requirements for that process as well. So we're kind of doing
Yeah.
double duty because the downtown TIF does expire, I think definitely within the next 10 years. So that will be something that if we needed to do. And part of that means that you have to have a designated district that's considered your downtown district. So.
right, and the other thing we talked about yesterday was the Mill Island plan. And we are at the point now where we're getting ready to go and work for grants. And we decided that our first focus is actually going to be to complete the trail system along Mill Island Park and to make it ADA. So that's going to be our phase 1 focus.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Let's to get more usage
Yeah.
and let's show off the park.
Right, and from there, we can add on the amenities after that.
Very good. Thank you, Stephanie. Other committee reports would be the PFAS committee. We actually met the last night. And so that was actually with the CDC. They were generous with their time. It's sometimes difficult to get state agencies to come out, but we actually had 3 reps from the CDC that answered a lot of questions that we had put forward to them ahead of time. We're going to, as a committee, go back over their responses on our meeting in August, a little bit later on this month. I think it's the 27th. I have to pull that out, but anyway, that's our next meeting, and we're going to discuss that as well as the letter that's in here that we had our response from the DEP. I thought the CDC did a great job last night of really talking about the issues and how they're, the science behind it and the threat of PFAS. And again, our committee tends to be a diverse committee with lots of different opinions. So it was nice to have some of the science being presented and looking at the long-term ramifications of PFAS. John, you were there last night.
Yes.
Your thoughts along that line, I think.
I think CDC did a phenomenal job. They pretty much answered everything, and we get to the point, the biggest thing that we've got to figure out is where we're going to go with people that are right now have well problems and stuff like that.
Right.
Obviously the PFAS is causing cancer, and that's the biggest
concern.
I think the biggest thing going on, and
Yep.
hopefully there's money involved so that we can do that, because the state is going to run out of money within a period of a few years, helping people to redo their wells and things like that. So it's something that we've got to handle.
Definitely. And I think just for everybody's information, so I think as a committee, we are moving forward, I think at a pretty good pace. Now, having some of our questions answered from the agencies, kind of putting together our plan going forward to kind of give some recommendations to the council. So hopefully we'll have that in a little bit later on this fall. But I think we're moving ahead on that end. I know it's not going to be the typical public hearing or anything, but I have Max Kenny, who's also in the audience, who is on the committee. Did you have anything you'd like to mention? Okay.
No, I think you hit it on the head.
Okay.
More information coming out as time goes on.
Thank you. Yeah. So I think it was well done. I guess I would like to, again, just publicly thank the CDC for being here. They took a very dry subject and made it somewhat, I won't say entertaining, but at least something you could, you didn't fall asleep. So
Absolutely.
that's good. They did a great job for us last night. And we'll talk more a little bit about, obviously in our letter from the DEP a little bit later on in the meeting tonight. That's all I have from the PFAS committee. I think everything else is on hold at the moment.
No, there's no others.
Yeah.
Yep.
So be moving to our fifth order of business, which is the consent agenda. These items are considered routine and standard business, and therefore will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests prior to consideration of this portion of the agenda, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered next on the agenda. Item 24-122, order that the Fairfield Town Council hereby waives the reading of and accept the minutes for meeting number 2024-14 held on July 24th, 2024. And item 24-123, order the Town Council hereby approves the Treasurer's warrant number 131, the general fund for on 6/30/2024 in the amount of $8,873.49, not limited to but including B&H Photo, Mickey's Wrench, and State of Maine Vitals, and warrant number 60, general fund, 6/30/2025 in the amount of $140,226.11, not limited to but including Employee Health Trust, State of Maine Motor Vehicles, and the IFNW.
So moved.
Second. Motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor? 5-0. Thank you very much. The sixth order of business, to take action on the following items of business as read by the council chair. There are none. We'll move over to the seventh order of business, the council workshop and other business, so we'll get busy now. Discuss the proposed updates to the public safety ordinance. Article 6, noise. So,
Page 6.
do we want to, so this one, I guess, in the past, so we're looking at striking one part of it, basically the third item. Right. The noise generated shall not be audible above background sounds at a distance of 100 yards or more from the noise source, nor shall the noise be unreasonably loud within the sound area. And I think that was coming out from our meeting the last meeting we had.
Yes.
Any thoughts or discussions?
So, as we had discussed at your last meeting, this was the recommendation from Chief Gould, because this is the one item that's within this ordinance that required him to deny that application the last time, which he appealed, the applicant appealed, and council approved. And the compromise that we had worked through did work, but with this statement still being in the ordinance, he still would have no choice but to deny the application and bring it back again to the council. So by striking this allows him to do what he needs to be able to work with the applicant and allow for those adjustments that we made to happen. So as he had put in his memo for your last meeting, that this was the piece that he needed to have taken out of there.
Thank
That's
you,
it, it's the only change.
Any?
No, I think that's a good thing, because even in number 4, if you look at the last sentence, it's left up to the chief of police to determine whether all required consents have in fact been obtained.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
So I think our next step on that would be to move it
So
to...
we'll advertise the public hearing and
Yep.
then put it on for an actual amendment at your next meeting for an action item.
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you,
Yeah, I'm
Michelle.
glad that the chief is on to this and critical of the wording. So thank
And
you.
again, he apologizes for not being able to be here this evening.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Next one is to discuss the fire department and EMS services. So, obviously we have the chief here. Well, so would you like to speak at this point, or?
Yeah,
That'd be great.
I will talk until you're tired of listening.
We won't get tired.
Oh,
Oh, you might fall asleep. So basically I don't want to call it a proposal because it's obviously not complete, a full proposal. The manager and I had talked about presenting you this amount of information to really focus on, you know, what it would look like to have a transporting service, what we currently do and provide now, because I don't think a lot of people quite understand what we actually do on a daily basis. And then we talked about, in my description about, you know, the study, about what they make for recommendations, staffing needs currently, so much as, not so much, you know, in conjunction with a transporting service, but a staffing increase need just due to the increase of call volume that we're seeing over the last several years. And we talked about the added value of having a service. I don't know if you want me to totally read this whole presentation.
No.
Or if you want to pick and choose portions of it. So I'm trying to, you know, hit around a little bit. I did include the stats of area departments for you. Some costs, we didn't want to get into the weeds of a lot of money figures just because there's still a lot of unknowns. As, you know, when you look at Medicare, main care reimbursements, there's just a lot to do with all that stuff. So last thing I would want to do is give you, you know, misinformation, and I would want those to be 100% accurate, or as close to accurate as we could get. So that's just a kind of real brief overview, but I'm more than willing to answer any questions you guys have about the information. At this point, our biggest need is staffing increase. You know, in order to do an ambulance service, and even just to maintain the current level of service we provide, we need more help. The call company, as we've seen across the state and the country, are just not there and available like they used to be. So we're relying on basically our full-time career staff to respond to these calls by themselves. This year, you know, we're going to push 2,000 calls. So that is an extreme amount of call volume for 2 people.
If I might just interject 2 seconds for those people that are in the audience and listening at home. For Fairfield and Benton, it is pretty amazing. We had 1,882 calls last year. And you compare that, obviously, Waterville in the area has 5,406. But when you compare to towns like Winslow and Skowhegan, Winslow's at 1,457, Skowhegan's at 1,280, Clinton's at 844. So Fairfield Benton is very busy. So I just wanted to make sure that got out there.
Yeah, and you know, and then the staffing reflects that as well, right? We're doing 1,880 calls with 2 people. Winslow's doing 1,400 calls with 3 people plus a per diem, so 4 plus a full-time deputy chief. Skowhegan's doing 1,200 calls with 3 people per shift, plus a deputy chief, plus a full-time fire chief. You know, Waterville has 8 full-time people, which obviously they have a bigger operation. So, yeah, so that it, you know, our staffing levels essentially have not increased since the 70s. In the 70s, they created the rescue and fire were separate. The rescue guys didn't really do a lot at fire calls. The fire guys did not go to rescue calls. You know, they kind of just did their own thing. When they combined, we had 2 full-time people at a time. We added the day guy in, I believe, 2099 or 2000, and that lasted till 2012, 2011, 2012, and then that was removed from the budget up until this previous budget. So basically, we've had no staff increases, with call increases every single year, I think, but 2 in the course of that, you know, time frame. So that is where we're at with. I know you guys had asked for an update, and essentially, at this time, our hands are sort of tied because of we don't have the staff to move forward with this project. In order to have a successful transporting system. You know, and I think the last thing I want and the last thing you folks would want and the townspeople would want is a subpar transporting service, you know. If we're gonna do this and invest in the community, then it needs to be 100% and a successful service. So. Any other questions about the?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Can I just clarify a couple of things though in that
Yeah.
report? So on that page 6 with those stats, the fire department statistics, where it says staff on duty, what's not included on there is per shift. I just want to make sure people didn't think that that's how many people actually worked for the department.
So it's
That's per shift. Those are how many people are on duty at a time. So when they're attending calls throughout the course of the day, that's how many people are actively working in the station at any given time. We have more than 2 full-time firefighter or EMS providers. It's just how many are on during that shift.
Thank you.
Okay. So, so it's not like Waterville has 8 full-time people. They have 8 full-time people on duty during any given hour.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Chief Leary, thank you so much for doing this.
Absolutely.
And I read this with the understanding of, is this where we want to go with an ambulance service?
Sure.
So that you know where I'm coming from. First of all, if we had the right amount of staffing, would there be a change in how the shifts are designated?
As far as the
Like, would it be 8-hour shifts? Right now, you're working 12, 24.
24s, yeah, no, that would stay the same.
That
Yeah.
would stay the
Yeah,
same?
absolutely.
So how many more people are actually needed? I
So,
looked-
so essentially, to operate with the call volume that we have, as recommended by our recent audit, 4 per shift would be needed to operate.
Is that 4 paramedics or
No.
4 EMTs?
No, it does, it could, essentially, we would like to have 1 paramedic per shift to cover all of the paramedic calls, you know, for that particular day. The rest could be comprised of basics, advanced, or extra paramedics, you know. Obviously, the more the merrier, so to speak. Currently, we have 2 shifts that are covered with paramedics, and 1 that's covered with AEMT coverage.
Okay, I was pleased to see in the report that we now have 6 paramedics.
Yes, yeah.
Of those 6 paramedics, how many of them are full-time?
2 are full-time.
2 are, and
Yeah.
the rest are all call-in?
On-call people.
On
Yeah,
call.
Yeah.
Okay, and the same for the EMTs, we have 8, and
Yes.
how many are full-time?
So, just let me pull this up. Right now, we currently have, we have 2 paramedics. We have 1 advanced EMT. The rest are basic EMTs, but we have 3 that are enrolled in the advanced EMT program beginning August 28th, I believe. So the potential for them to be licensed won't be achieved until, for 2 semesters, basically, so.
All right,
So it would be.
So is that a total of 17 employees?
No, we
No.
only have, we currently have 7 full-time employees with 1 vacancy. So if we were full-staffed, we would have 8 full-time employees.
That includes the chief.
Yes,
And that includes you.
includes myself, yes.
So that brings me to my next questioning.
Yep.
Are paramedics and EMTs also firefighters?
In our department, yes. Yeah,
They-
everybody is dual trained. That's a requirement in the union contract, and quite frankly, it's, you know, it would be my requirement as well.
Okay, so if we're having a hard time filling positions now, if we ended up going with an ambulance service, then that compounds the situation, because you said we're going to need to have more per shift.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
in looking at all of this, it's easy to understand the positives. So patient care would increase.
Yep.
If we had our own ambulance service. What else would be a positive?
So response times, obviously, we respond quicker. So our initial patient contact, initial patient treatment would stay essentially the same, because we provide that service now. is what it would do, though, is provide that continuity of care, of that, basic or advanced level care, through from the beginning to the hospital until we transfer that care. Right now, we transfer the care to another service, other providers, and once they leave, we don't know what they're getting for treatment from the time they leave us to the hospital.
Okay.
So basically, that's the big thing, is we can guarantee that continuity of care, that we will, we'll start and we'll finish with them, transfer care to the hospital. So when I say response times, our response times to the scene will be the same, but our transport time from the time of the original 911 call to the time the patient potentially could get to the hospital would be quicker, because there isn't that delay of waiting for the transporting service to get there.
What would happen if, say, we have an ambulance and it's transporting somebody to Augusta,
Yep.
and there's another call where an ambulance is needed?
And that's the biggest reason for the 4 people per shift. So those 2 people that are left can cover that second call. Because that happens on a fairly regular basis. Yesterday, in fact, and this is kind of an off-the-wall thing, but yesterday we had 4 calls within like 8 minutes. And that happens not on a regular basis to that extreme, but our back-to-back calls, I think our last year when we did the stats for the audit, I think it was close to like 200 times we had like almost simultaneous calls. So that is the need for the extra staff, so that we're not, transporting and leaving the town uncovered, basically.
What would happen if another transporting situation?
Well, with that audit, we would recommend that we initially, maybe not when we start the service, but our goal would be to get 2 transporting ambulances, so those two additional personnel could cover a second transporting call.
So that brings up an interesting thought. Med 1 is over 100,000 miles, according to your report.
Yes, yeah.
And we are going to need a new vehicle.
Yes.
If we upgraded Med 1, and I'm talking as a hypothetical
Yep, yep.
situation here, I'm not saying we're going to do this. Hypothetically, if we upgraded Med 1 to be a transporting machine,
Yeah.
would that be a step in the right direction and be more
Absolutely.
economically
Absolutely, yeah.
sound for us as a town?
Yeah, because exactly like you just said, that truck that's a 2014, so it's 10 years old. It has 120-ish thousand miles, don't quote me. And they're a hard 120,000 miles, because that truck runs all the time. And when it's not going to a call, it's idling somewhere, chances are. So it hasn't had the easiest life. So yes, and to replace that vehicle with the body that's on it, I don't want to say an odd off-the-wall number, but I can't imagine we're going to get out of it for less than $75,000. So to replace that and not take that step. So if we did get if we did buy an ambulance, that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to transport as soon as that delivered. We could use that as a first response vehicle, but like you said, that is a step in the right direction of, okay, now that's one thing less that we have to buy, going down the road.
Would right now, Med 1, does it carry any firefighting apparatus?
So just some basic hand tools. We have a battery hydraulic, it's a hydraulic but battery operated hydraulic extrication tool, so we can cut a door off a vehicle. So basic hand tools, and then just the gear, that's basically it.
So if we have like a Med 1 as an ambulance,
Yeah.
that would not be available then to
No,
carry?
we could still do that.
You still can do
Yeah,
that?
because whatever we buy, I mean, most of them have several outside compartments as well for extra equipment and gear. So a lot of your transporting fire departments actually spec out their ambulances to carry some extra equipment. Because typically the ambulance will arrive before the fire apparatus, just because it's a little more agile, so they try to get a minimal amount of equipment on those. Yeah.
So for negatives, it's really staffing and cost, correct?
Yeah, basically, obviously it is a cost, but, I like to think that, and I hope that the community and yourselves would see that it's an investment in our community, it's an investment in our town because we want to provide, a high level of service to our residents, the best that we can. So by investing this money, providing this service, we can elevate our service capabilities for our residents.
Would we at any time, if we did have our own ambulance service, and hypothetically
Yep.
speaking, of course, would we at any time need the services of Delta?
Yes, absolutely. And we would, because of like for yesterday is a prime example, right? 4 calls at once, we are gonna need help. We, unless we hire 10 people per shift, we're never gonna cover that type of call. So, yes, and and it's just like we do now, basically, we call Waterville, we call Winslow. And Delta does the same thing, right? Delta cannot cover all the calls in Fairfield. And every once in a while, they have to call another service to cover it, so.
So in the future then, hypothetically speaking, if we had an ambulance service, then we would have a regional mutual aid compact?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And in turn, we, I would definitely want to help Delta if they, if they were busy in Oakland, we would go help them if they needed it,
How often has a Fairfield paramedic or EMT been needed to go with Delta to the hospital?
So we actually go on a fairly regular basis, not necessarily because, they don't have they don't have a paramedic on duty. Most of the time, they do have a paramedic. In more recent times, the paramedic is delayed because they don't staff a paramedic on every ambulance anymore. They have a paramedic in a fly car, but they could be coming from Augusta, they could be coming from anywhere. So more so is what happens is we ride in, especially the advanced level providers, just to provide that extra level of treatment to the patient. Because when you have somebody critically ill, it's a lot for one person to deal with. So at that point, our focus is that patient. What's in the best interest for the patient. So if 2 of us have to go to the hospital, then that's what we're doing because that's what we're here for. So.
Okay. Looking at on page 7 and 8, and this is my last area.
Okay.
First of all, does Benton have to pay Delta now as well?
They do.
They
Yep.
do, okay.
Yep.
You listed the current cost of current department operations. For the 24-25 budget, operational budget, it was $1,274,561.
Yes.
And this includes salaries, benefits, insurance, retirement. And then you go on to bullet. Sir, you have cost per call would equal over. Is this under the assumption that we would have our own ambulance? Is
No,
that?
so this is based off our current budget. I just wanted to break it down per call to give you a perspective.
Okay,
Yep.
so currently this is
Yes.
what we're doing.
Yep.
And are paying. So then on the top of page 8, you said this equals an additional, when all this was said and done, an additional $323,190 in funds that will be paid to Delta in the 25-26 budget.
Yeah, so Delta sent out a letter, and Michelle and I had a meeting with Delta's director a few weeks ago, and they told us that next year they will be going to $35 per capita. So next budget, Fairfield's total will be $226,730, and Benton's portion would be $96,460, and that's where those 2 numbers added together equals the $323,190. So essentially, is what my point was, is that the residents, the taxpayers, are going to be paying that $323,190 regardless. Whether now we have to make the decision on, do we pay it to Delta or do we pay it to our own department?
Right. In the audit, it recommended that a serious conversation take place. Are we now ready for that serious conversation, Chief?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, and I think this is why we kind of wanted to propose it this way, because I wanted to really hit on the fact that staffing is a huge thing, and without the staffing increases, I just wouldn't feel comfortable doing the service.
Thank you for your honesty
Yeah,
on that.
absolutely.
Thank you.
So has Benton been briefed on this, Chief? or-
They haven't got this particular report,
Okay.
but I know Michelle has had several conversations with them, and we have had conversations with them in the past that, this is an option that we're looking at. And from my understanding, and I think Michelle's understanding, is that they are definitely in favor of this option.
Because I know currently, when goes out in Rescue 3.
Yes,
If
yeah.
you get ambulance service, Rescue 3 stays back.
Most
Or-
likely, because on the ambulance, there'll be 2 people all the time. So the reason why Rescue 3 goes a lot right now is because there's only 1 person on Med 1,
Okay.
so they need that second set of hands, so.
So we just actually save mileage and...
It
usage
could,
of Rescue 3.
I'm not gonna say that it's gonna save a lot of mileage, because we have a lot of serious medical
Right.
calls, and the more people, the better, basically, so. Yeah.
So my ignorance, but I'm going to ask.
No.
When you're looking at hiring other additional staff,
Yeah.
is it easier to hire as a EMT paramedic, or is it easier to hire as a firefighter also trained that way? So
Right.
would that be one way of looking at staffing if we went
Definitely,
forward?
so that's a great question. And I would use Waterville as an example. Within the last, I think it was 21, 22-ish, they started transporting. And when they did, they created what they called the fire medic position. So their job requirements were an EMT license only. They actually, I believe they required a paramedic license only, but you did not have to have the fire training. And in that job description, they were EMS only. They could assist, with outside fire operations once they were trained to, but they couldn't go inside, because they didn't, until they had the proper training. And then in their job description, I believe it didn't require them to get fire training, but it would be highly encouraged. And I think, I'm almost 100% sure that they hired probably 5 or 6 fire medics to get started. And I believe almost all of those, maybe but 1 or 2, went on to get their firefighter 1 and firefighter 2 certification.
Is that-
But that is an avenue
I was gonna say, is that a
to
pathway
maybe
to-
attract,
Yeah.
some other people that just haven't had the fire training yet, but that doesn't necessarily mean they don't want to. They just probably, life's busy, right? So they just haven't had the time. So yeah, that is a definite option, especially for that 4th person, Ideally, the 3rd person would be dual trained, so we could have 3 firefighters, and then that 4th position could possibly be just the EMS only, especially at the medic level.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good. Thanks.
yeah.
And the firefighter school that we do and the trainings that we
Yeah.
do now with the firefighter training facility makes it easier
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
us to achieve that goal.
Yeah, so
Based upon those pieces.
we're currently doing a Fire 1 and 2 program right now. We have people from all over the state attending, so.
Does KVCC have a fire training
No, they don't.
program?
No, we've talked to them.
They've got paramedics, though.
Yes, they do the EMS, yeah.
The EMS,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Other questions for the chief? Michelle, you have a statement, or?
Well, I don't want to interrupt your questions for the chief. I did have some things to say.
I've got one more.
Yes.
In your experience, especially like with Clinton and
Yeah.
all, the insurance for an ambulance service, you need to not only insure the vehicle itself, but you have to take out insurance for the staff. Do you need some kind of liability insurance?
No, they would be
for-
covered under our current, yeah, go ahead, Michelle.
I've actually done that investigation for you.
Oh,
Our first responders are already covered under our insurance. The difference is if they're responding in an ambulance or doing transport, the price would go from $517 to $1,100 per ambulance per year. As well as the Med 1 truck, which is at $549 per year for insurance, for automobile insurance, would go to $1,200. So it basically doubles what we currently pay for insurance, but we already provide it now.
what about if a patient wants to sue?
It's same insurance.
Same insurance?
Yep.
It doesn't change the classification insurance. It just changes the amount, the cost.
Well, and that doesn't surprise me.
Sure.
Okay.
Good question.
Thank you.
All set, all set. Michelle, you have a statement.
So, the biggest reason why this is here for you, obviously, is because we had the fire audit that was done, that was completed, and you had your joint meeting with the town of Benton, and everybody talked about it at that point in time, and it has not been talked about again since. Budget season will be here before we know it, and it is time to have that very serious conversation about what we are going to do with this. This report was put together for you intentionally without a lot of numbers in it. And the biggest reason for that is because if this was not a direction that you wanted us to proceed, it quite frankly was a waste of time for us to go through and do a more in-depth budget for you and start putting all of that stuff together. We did do a rough estimate. We have gone through, we've started looking at some things. I can tell you that for every new employee that we add on, it's not cheap. Roughly an employee costs right around $130,000 a year. And that's middle of the range. That's middle of the range for service within our union contract, but it is at the paramedic current wage. Right, so that's top licensing cost with current union contract numbers. Just over about $130,000 a year. That includes their insurance, their retirement, that's the full package. So there are lots of things to weigh into this. And Chief Leary is correct. We do definitely need to talk about staffing. We do not have enough staff to sustain the level of care that they're providing now. It is getting to the point where, like he said, their back-to-back calls within the last several years have been astronomical, and we just don't have the people to provide that service, and they're relying more heavily on mutual aid. You will be paying within the next year, not this current fiscal budget, but based upon their predictions, Delta's predictions for 25-26, over $300,000. That's almost 3 new employees. Our staff are going on those calls regardless. So we have to pay staff to go on those calls before Delta ever even gets there. We need to look at bringing on that staff. Whether you want them to put them in an ambulance and take somebody to the hospital, that's going to be on the town council. But those are things that we do have to really seriously talk about and deal with. And we know that it's an increase. And if you want us to go forward and put some more of that budget together and exactly what that would look like, then we most certainly would be willing to do that for you and capable of doing that for you. But we need your direction first before that's
My
done.
question, Michelle, is if we do go with this timeframe for invitation, how
And
long
those would
will-
be the things that we would have to get for you, because one, obviously, there's other pieces that go to that. So like we would want to know what would be the estimated of time frame it takes to change our licensing. What do we anticipate it would be for increase in staffing levels? So one of the things I do know is that we have staff that are currently with us now that are paramedics that are here because of the fact that they have the ability to use their license. And oftentimes folks who are going to school to be a paramedic are not going to come work here if they're not transporting, because that's what they want to do. They're going to go work for an agency that they know already has an ambulance and has those openings. So there are things that could happen with just an anticipation of the fact that we would have an ambulance could give us more interest actually with staffing to work in our department, because people want to go where they can use their skills.
Yeah, and it's a huge, especially if you pay for it yourself. Medic school is like $13,000 to $14,000 now, and it's almost 2 years of your life, that you'll never get back. So it's a huge investment for people to do that. So Michelle is exactly right. They want to use those skills, in the workforce, because they went to school for this and they paid the money for this. So and I have had people reach out to me and say, hey, when you get an ambulance, let me know.
But currently, paramedics, we provide the same service
Yep.
that a paramedic from
Yeah,
Delta would
absolutely.
do.
Yeah.
We just don't
We
do the
literally just don't
transporting.
buckle them on a stretcher and drive them to the hospital.
Right.
That's all
So
we
they're
do.
just missing that.
We do
that-
everything else.
The car ride.
Yeah.
So, well, this is what I've been saying for months, and I am standing true to this. I would like to see a cost analysis done of the fire department's emergency services, right down to the Band-Aids.
Yeah.
I know that Delta does provide some materials to supply you with,
Yeah.
but I want to know exactly how much we are as taxpayers are putting out. I would like to see the cost of a new Med 1 as an ambulance. Not to say that we are going to have an ambulance service, but I think it's something that we need to look into anyways to provide for the community.
Sure.
I want to see compare and contrast of prices for the maximum number of staffing that you will need, along with the cost and upkeep of an ambulance.
Sure.
I want to know the insurances and everything else that's going to be there. If I'm going to make an informed decision and compare whether or not to have an ambulance service as a municipal business,
Sure.
then I want to know exactly what my costs are going to be.
Yeah.
I know that this is not for a profit, but I don't want to see us going in the red either.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to see all the numbers up front.
My question, if we place our Med 1 with an ambulance, with the current place where Med 1 is, will that ambulance fit in where Med 1 is?
It's going to be close, I'll be 100%
Okay.
honest with you.
That's on another thing, that's why.
No, sure, yeah. And, and I know we've talked about this before, it's like, one thing leads to the next thing, it's like, it's a trickle-down effect.
That's why I thought I just asked, because the size of Med 1 is smaller than an ambulance.
Yeah.
Will an ambulance actually fit in the spot where Med 1 is?
So we'll need to have those,
Sure, absolutely.
that information too. Good point,
Oh, it's just what I was
Peter.
gonna-
Good
Is
point.
there actually space for one?
Yes. Yeah,
We'll make space.
yeah. It's a big, big step.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
And to think about this.
And like, I know we've talked about it before, I would not support this if it wasn't done the right way, So we're gonna definitely come up with a proposal that will lay everything out, that will see a successful ambulance service. Because the last thing I want to have on my name is an ambulance service that doesn't succeed and closes down in 3 or 5 years, So.
And I think we should also have a cost comparison of, if we stick with Delta, this would be projected costs, but say like 5 years down the road, projected costs for Delta versus what it would actually cost us 5 years down the road to have our own ambulance service, to see. Exactly, because I'm afraid that we could bill all we want, but we're going to be in the same situation as Delta. They're not getting paid,
No, you're at the
reimbursed
mercy.
100%.
Right, you're at the mercy of the insurance company.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and we're going to fall into that same bucket. So why put everybody in the town in that situation? So it doesn't need to be our headache. Anyways, let's see what the numbers say.
So what is the feeling of the council?
I want to see the numbers
Heard
first.
Stephanie's,
I want to see the numbers first.
loud and clear.
I agree with Stephanie too on the numbers on this. And, so,
But
because I thought about my question.
Yeah. The numbers are certainly important for us to make an informed decision. Is it accessible knowledge to know, on these Delta transports, the average cost to whoever went? No. So we can't anticipate what sort of, I know we're never going to make money on this, but
Yeah,
certainly
yeah.
offset as much of the cost on the taxpayer as possible.
So we have recently, I say recently, within the last 8 months, I guess, we have developed a regional EMS group. It's comprised of myself, Chief Essler from Waterville, Deputy Chief Flannery from Waterville, the Waterville Assistant City Manager, Chris from Delta, the CEO for Delta. There is the Augusta Fire Chief, the Augusta Deputy Chief, and Dr. Pay, who's our regional medical director, and he's also our department medical director. So we formed this group, and basically we've pulled their data from all these departments. So that is actually at our fingertips, basically. So I will be able to have all kinds of call information from here, from Waterville, from Delta, from like the city of Augusta, so I should be able to get a pretty reasonable estimate on cost.
Okay. Yeah, if that could be included in our cost analysis, just to.
Yeah, cost
to see.
and revenue, I should
Yeah,
say.
perfect.
So yeah.
So what I'm hearing is the council would like to move forward but have with a detailed report, and I think keeping that process going. So I think I would like, if we can commit to that, and so I think we support that.
Right.
So but it's an undertaking of time on obviously Chief Leary's back, but also Michelle's, and so I think that's a really important part, but I think it is to have that knowledge to try to make a best decision.
We need to set up a time so they have it reported back to us.
Yeah, I think it should be somewhat actionable, but I'm not sure what you think on a
So our
timeframe.
goal is to get it to you sooner rather than later, obviously. I would like to shoot for your first meeting in September, but it
That's
might
aggressive.
end up being your last meeting in September because budget prep starts the end of October.
Right.
But that's, if we could have it by the last meeting in September, I would still be honestly fairly impressed with that.
That's our goal.
Yeah. What about the new Med 1? Should that be something that we consider as well?
Well, I think that,
That's it.
Yeah, I
We're
think
gonna
that'd
put
be-
that in the.
We
I think
can come
it's
up
all
with
part
a-
of the-
Yeah,
It's not budgeted for this year, though, right?
no.
it's not budgeted, no.
No.
It doesn't get budgeted individually anyway, it's the
That's the
capital
capital.
reserve
Right,
money
right.
that they have. So they are about to pay their last payment on their pumper, and then there'll be funds for that.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's in just the department's capital equipment reserve account.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Let's at least start the process and look at what the numbers,
We
what the
have,
numbers show us.
do you have the direction you need? I think,
Yeah,
I think we
absolutely.
have the direction we need and we'll
Very good.
keep going.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for the time and thanks for the presentation. Number 3 on our workshop is discuss the main DEP PFAS response letter to council dated 7/24/2024. So I'm not sure if anybody has questions on that. We talked about it a little bit last time. Honestly, the committee, the PFAS committee, we talked about it last night, and we're actually going to be working on a response to the letter and kind of going through the details at our next meeting later this month. So I'm not sure where the council stands as you want to review it. I think the biggest thing to understand is that we appreciate the DEP responding to us. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is a lot of it is some of the same information that we've already known. And when you start looking at things, that there are some concerns. Obviously, when the department estimates they've only completed 30% of the statewide investigation, and yet their funds are getting down to the point where they're looking at estimating maybe 2 to 2.5 years left of funding for filtration systems, and that also goes into some of the additional testing. With the drop in the standard to 4 parts per trillion, they are saying that they're not going to expand their testing. They're going to keep it at the same level, really go after the areas of highest concentration, and so that filtration systems will not be provided for those wells at 4 to 20 parts. So those are the things that we look at. So I'm concerned about continued testing. So some of the places that, some of the wells and some of the locations that were near the original 20 parts per trillion, I'm concerned about, so to see how things change in the groundwater. I'm concerned about what those people that were at 19 parts per trillion, and so, but they're still under the old standard, so they're not considered for filtration systems. I'm concerned about the fact that we only have a couple years left on the filtration systems right now, and that they are saying at that point they don't know where additional funding will come from or whether there be additional funding. They're initially saying you're on your own. So those are some of the things that I see in that letter that are the responses. And so I think we'll be talking about it as a committee, but also thoughts from the council.
I saw the same thing for about 5 years, that it goes implementing this new loan, that cuts it down from 5 years to 2.5 years. And after 2.5 years, no funding, that goes on to the landowners.
Yep.
That's the big concern right there. And also too, is this, I know your letter and response to that on the the Fairfield website for residents to view?
They're not. That actually was asked me the other day too, and I went and looked, and it's not
Okay.
there. It will be.
Okay.
So that was-
Because I want
that
to
was a
put,
question.
actually, quite frankly, the PFAS committee letter, the council's letter, and then the response letter from DEP, but I do not see them on our website, so we'll get
Okay.
that done.
All right.
In any of the discussions with the CDC, did it talk about future land use for land affected with
So not the CDC, they could talk more about basically more the health concerns of PFAS and, where the greatest sources were, whether it's from water, which is the number one source, from their findings, and then looking at, consumption of various foods, and also inhaled, so dust as well. So that wasn't really the CDC part of
They
things.
didn't touch on it at all?
No, that's kind of.
DACF
Yeah,
did.
so
Yeah, they
it's kind of outside the CDC's
That's outside their
purview. They assist with some numbers and kind of helping the other agencies, but it's pretty much more the DEP and the Department of Ag, or DACF now.
One of the things I would like to reiterate is that, yes, this letter does give an estimated time frame for this, but when the committee met with the DEP and they were here, they said that was based upon what they had currently for financing. Remember, they haven't finished their tiered investigation around the state. They also said that that time frame was the fact that pending finding another major large community with contamination. So if they kept going on the same level they were going on now with the contamination that they're finding across the state, it's that estimate. If they find another Fairfield, that money will be even less, and that is exactly what they said. That money will not last nearly 2 years. And I think one of the other things that might be a piece of concern for people that they need to realize is that these new regulations are federal rules, and federal rules and state drinking water rules, quite frankly, are around public drinking supplies and not private drinking water wells, and they specifically said that.
They call that out in
So
that
the
letter.
fact that they called it right out, that federal rule does not apply to public drinking water wells. So one of the things that we have been told by every agency and everything that we have read is that the new federal money coming out to deal with these new lower levels cannot be used for private wells.
Private, yeah. you said
And that was stated a couple times in the letter.
Yeah. And so I think that's one of the biggest things that we need to be really aware of, is that when the funding is gone, there's a very good possibility that the funding is absolutely gone. And how a lot of states are dealing with this is that they are telling their residents that if they are providing filtration systems, this is your system, you have 2 years, you have 1 year, and then it's yours and it's yours to maintain. And with the work that the PFAS committee has done and the various state organizations they have met with, if it is an estimated cost of about $5,000 a year to maintain your filtration system, even if you have low numbers, that's just the regular testing and filter swap outs, that is going to be a really big impact to the members of our community. And people need to know that, because I'm always afraid that they're going to get a letter someday from the state of Maine that says, here's your filtration system, this is who your contractor is, thank you very much, you're on your own. And that could happen at any day, and I think people really, we don't talk about that enough, and we really need to, because people need to be prepared for that.
I'm worried about that myself.
So yeah, I think it's an important part, and that's why we started the committee and trying to make sure
That's
that we talked about these issues, and so we could, come up with a game plan, and well as how to address this moving forward. So I mean, whether it's our toolkit that we want to provide, just the information sources, and then how do we take care of our town.
Right.
So that's my thoughts, but I open to yours and I know how to move forward. Part of, I guess I would say that the committee is working on that, and we'll have kind of our responses to the letter. We will definitely keep you informed along that line.
Has the committee talked about the fact that maybe there should be some more public water systems within our town?
So I know that's a hot button issue, right? But I think it's always, when we discuss this, like, what are options? right? So those are all those options, whether it's, expanded public water drinking, whether it's system, whether it's expanded financing for long-term financing for water filtration systems for each individual well, what that looks like and different options that way. So I think it's one of our first and foremost things that we want to protect is our drinking water, because that's the primary source for contamination and for people becoming, getting PFAS contact. So we have to look at clean water. And that's kind of one of those basic human rights, all right? Clean water to drink for us.
You need it for survival.
You need it for survival. So I think that's really, really important to us, and that can look at a lot of different methods to get there, whether it's long-term financing for those filtration systems, whether it's more of a public system. Obviously, again, that can set off alarms, but I think it has to be discussed. So especially when we start looking at if there's not going to be long-term money for continued servicing of those filtration systems, and for the people that are between 4 and 20, so.
My concern is resistance on public water to own well water.
Sure.
That's the big issue right now.
Yep.
Trying to find that and resistance for residents to actually.
Yeah. And I think that's, that hasn't fallen upon deaf ears for us, and I think that's why we look at different options and give people options. I'm not going to put the water district into a corner, but I would also say that there are a lot of different ways to get a water system in place, and not everybody has to be forced on a water system. I think that is pretty broad, and I think that's pretty reasonable to say at this point. So I think there's a lot of discussion going forward. Yep. Thoughts? Anything? Guidelines from the council of thoughts that you'd like the committee to work on for you?
I think it's time to come up with some plans. I think you have done a lot of talking. You've gone to the right agencies. So now take it to that next step and say, what are we going to do with this information, and do some strategic planning with it?
I would agree with that. And I think that's kind of
That's exactly where they are.
Yeah.
That's where they are.
So we're looking at probably having more of a final, I think when I say final report, but at least a consensus statement and some of our work that we want to get. One of our goals was to have that toolbox for everybody. So if you move to Fairfield, what do you want to know about PFAS? And also who to contact and what the issues are. And the DACF is actually putting their little toolkit together. We don't want to kind of invent the wheel. So we'd like to piggyback on some of their work, and that's coming close to being done. So we want to use some of that information. But I think we're coming, I would say in this we are focusing on this fall. What does that mean? September, October, to have more of a consensus statement and have a lot of our goals met.
Yeah. One other thing that has happened recently is MOFGA, the Maine Organic Farmers, I can't remember all the...
Farmers Association.
Thank you. They've received a grant. Has anybody spoken to the PFAS committee concerning their plans? Or?
The MOFGA's plans for that money? Right,
because we could learn from that.
Yeah, I guess much to my chagrin, there is, they have a research farm, so they're trying to work on mitigation. We're also working, the ACF is actually really talking about, and it's taking some of that $60 million that was provided mainly to farmers for all kinds of purposes, whether it was sometimes for paying them for their lost wages, paying them for lost equipment, lost cattle, lost growing, all those things, but also focusing on mental health. I think that's been a big part that we've not touched on. Even people here that are exposed to it, if you are lucky enough to maybe not showing outward health signs yet, you are also concerned about the fact that you're dealing with this every day, and there are mental health concerns that we would have as well. So I think some of those things we're also looking at.
Maine Farmland Trust too is. I've spoken to their reps as well. So there's a bunch of folks that are working on that. A lot of the work and a lot of the money is going into agriculture. So if you don't have a working farm, but you have a contaminated well, there's an awful lot of resources out there that are not available to you. So the average resident doesn't have a head of cattle in their backyard that they've been working for years and are going to have the benefits of being able to have those resources. So we're working on what are the resources for everybody,
Yeah.
not just agriculture.
Yeah, I think we're really trying to have that bridge between agricultural, work that's been done and some of the resources there. So what do we have for for average citizens that don't have a farm in their backyard? So I think that's really important.
Thank you.
You're welcome. This brings, any other thoughts? Anything you like to, direction you guys would like to have?
I think you covered most of it. I mean, the committee has definitely done an awful lot of research. It was interesting to watch them start, where everybody that's on that committee is affected by PFAS in one way or another, and everybody's understanding of what had happened and what was going on was completely different. So it was great the way that they went about all of this and made sure everybody had the same information from A to Z and worked through all of that. So that was really good. And yeah, they're anticipating this fall to hopefully be able to come back with some sort of, investigations, even if it's just as simple as we should look into X or Y or, whatever. But yeah,
It's good. Thank you.
good work.
Thank you. So at this point, we have discuss other council business. John, do you have anything?
Nope.
Nothing? Stephanie?
I have nothing.
Adam?
I do want to say that, Michelle, you opened it up about way earlier in the report, feels a few hours ago now, about the ATV club and all the work they're doing. I do want to put it out on record. They do have a glow ride on August 17th. I know it's a little ways away from now, but it's before our next meeting. It is a downtown glow ride through Waterville, but they'll also be coming back through Fairfield, and Fairfield PD will be picking it up and leading through Fairfield with the department's ATV or UTV side by side. So August 17th goes to a great cause. It will benefit the club as well as the Fairfield Food Pantry. And I want to congratulate that, Michelle, you have an administrative assistant. I think that'll be great for the town. A lot of these tasks that are very difficult to maintain with the workload you have, so thank you. And then I did want to ask a question that I saw going around quite a bit around the animal control officer for Fairfield. I noticed in your update that nothing from the police department is disclosed about how many calls they receive that they then refer to that service. Just curious if we can get some better information on what we pay for that, how many calls are we dealing with, what are they doing with a lot of these calls. Quite frankly, from my perspective, or at least the town people's perspective, is a lot of those calls go unanswered, which I think if we're paying for something, we better make sure that it's in everyone's best interest. So I would just love to see a little bit more information on
I
that.
can get some information for you on that.
Thank you.
I know that you had asked a question today, and I did double check with the police chief. So the current situation we have, so if you have an animal in your backyard and it's a dog, there's a very good possibility there's nowhere to take a stray dog at this point in time. So the town of Fairfield does contract with Somerset Animal Shelter, not the Waterville Animal Shelter.
Right.
So if you call from the town of Fairfield, the Waterville Animal Shelter will not take a dog from the town of Fairfield. The law only requires us to actually take care of domestic animals and not, we don't do skunks, we don't do raccoons, we don't do any of that stuff. But there is, and it's all over the state actually, a lack of space for stray animals. These facilities are full. They've been full because there are no-kill shelters. And during the pandemic, everybody thought it was great to be a pet owner. And now that they've all had to go back to work, a lot of people don't think it's great to be a pet owner anymore because they can't give them that time. So there's been a lot of surrenders. And that's why these shelters are really, really full. But yes, we'll definitely get you some more detail and some more information on all of that.
Thank you.
Peter?
Okay, I know this is before our next meeting, but I'd like to wish my lovely wife and a happy anniversary next Friday, be 27 years. So, and that's it.
Awesome, thank you. And I have nothing to add tonight, so we talked about a lot of things, that was good. So the next regular meeting of the Fairfield Town Council will be on Wednesday, August 21st. Circle your calendars, August 21st, 2024. That will be held as a hybrid meeting in the council chambers and via Zoom at 6:30 PM. This time, we'll go to recess.
Motion to recess.
Second.